does government, state, those in control, what is the motivation behind financing this specific type of sustenance, this specific type of farming? Would you agree with that it is because of this ability to control and tax, or are there other motivations there, or is there something I'm missing?
I don't think there's anything you're missing. I think that that's part of it. And then I think it's also just as humans, like when we get into a system and then we go deeper into the system, we tend to stay kind of stuck in that system until something pushes us out of it. And so I don't think it's
Mm,
necessarily just that grains are easier to tax, or I think that they are, they're more orderly, they're more organized. It's easier to see what's going on in a grain based system than like a forest filled with mushrooms and game animals and nuts, and it's complicated. But I think also at the time, as I was tracing some of that farm history back and trying to figure out, okay, what happened to my ancestors? How did we go from a people who grew grains and also had these complex ecological and food based relationships with wooded ecosystems? We were doing both for a long time. So why did we suddenly go all in on the grain side and just sort of throw out the woodland side? That didn't make sense to me. Um, there was this period during sort of early transition to capitalism, as financial agreements were changing and as charging interest on a loan, which used to be considered this sin on par with like murder, like not acceptable at all. And as that was sort of socially okayed and became acceptable, there was this push in the on farmland to make farmland ever more productive. And I think that part of what has happened with grains and with grain based systems is in a way that we haven't done with trees, we have been trying to get more and more grains off of the same piece of land now for several hundred years. And that's a function of our economic system, right? Because if you have a system where the amount of, where it's based on interest based money creation, you always have to find more. So you're never going to have enough by just doing the same thing forever. That's not good enough. You have to produce more all the time. And I think that grains, because of their short life cycle, respond to these sort of pushes in intensity in a way that it's really hard to do with like an oak tree or a chestnut tree, where they have this lifespan of decades or centuries, or in some cases, over 1,000 years. You're not going to be breeding quick returns on those trees in the same way that you can with grains. And so I think that that is a part of it. And that's something that's a real challenge for a lot of farmers today who are trying to transition to perennial crops, is that they do require some startup time. So it's not like you can
mm,
just put them in the ground and the next year you'll have a big crop, you'll pay back your loan. And some people are coming up with really innovative ways around this. And that's really cool to see that people are realizing, okay, the financing, when you have to wait 5 to 7 years for your first harvest and maybe 15 to 20 years until you really get up to production. And then, yes, you could be there for 300 years, once you get there, but you got to get there. So it's cool to see
right.
people kind of seeing that as a hurdle and finding innovative ways to work around it. But I do think just that life cycle piece is a huge part of it.
Yeah. No, I think it's so fascinating. And even hearing you talk about like the push for production and kind of squeezing these patches of land dry to get as much as we can out of it is so reflective in how we treat the commodity of human beings
Mm.
too, right? And
Yeah.
how we oftentimes treat ourselves, and how much time can I put into this one thing? And the way capitalism does work is just so focused on this production and more and more and more and more. And one thing that was also occurring to me as you were talking was how in agriculture, one of the things when I was being taught about all these things and it was being celebrated was, well, it frees up more people to be able to go do other things and innovate. And we don't need everyone farming for their own food. So now we have science and medicine and all of these other things. And when you said trees are actually a lot less work,
Yeah.
they actually already free up some time. I just think that's so powerful in that actually we've been told that this one system allows innovation when actually the power, the control is put back in the hands of the many. We gravitate towards the things that do allow for more innovation and more time and more rest and recuperation too, not just for human beings, but also for the land. Um,